Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Hernando County, and I'm here today with my regular co-host, Lily Browning, who's the Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator here in Hernando County. Good morning,
Good
Lily. How are
morning.
you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm here again. It must be Thursday morning.
It must
And
be.
And today we have a special guest with us.
Yay.
Cyndee Hamblin is one of our Master Gardener volunteers, and she's here to talk about our Master Gardener nursery because the subject came up last week and people were asking questions. And if you ever want to know what kind of plants we have for sale or what else is going on there, I'm probably not the best person to ask. So that's why we have Cyndee on here today. So if any questions come up about the nursery, she'd be more than happy to answer those. And I guarantee you she'll give you a better answer than I would too. So,
Well, I'll do my best, and thank you. It's exciting to be here to talk about the nursery.
yeah, I know we do mention it pretty much every week here. And a lot of times when we're talking about native plants or Florida friendly plants, putting things in your landscape, replacing things in your landscape. It did get kind of cold this past winter, and some people lost plants if you had the wrong things growing in your landscape. The nursery always comes up, and we've never had anybody from the nursery on here. And we've been doing this for well over a year. We had our 1 year anniversary a couple months ago. So so it's about time that we had somebody from the nursery on here.
And the nursery is well over 30 years old. I don't know when I know they started the Master Gardener program in 1987. Probably by 1990, they had some kind of nursery, and it's been at its current location since 94.
Wow.
Yeah, see?
Now, I know even in my time, I've been there 6 years, it has gone through a lot of expansion, renovations, always trying to improve, and we've built it up, but we've built on other people's work.
Right. And, well, I started work for County Extension as the receptionist in 1999, and there were 4 portable mobile units that were the offices for County Extension. They were there till 2009, and so the nursery was, if we're looking at the buildings to the right of that, basically where it is now. But after the buildings got taken down and Extension moved a couple times since then, the nursery stayed in the same place and was able to utilize the space to spread out. And really, you have it looking beautiful there. I'm always impressed when I go there. Just a little bit sad for missing the past, but excited about the future and how, where you have things going now.
Yeah, every time I go by, I think it looks great. And I know that I've been here close to 8 years. You guys have done a great job at kind of fine tuning the plant selection.
Yes.
Because when I started, there were a couple of maybe questionable plants, things that we may not want to be encouraging people to plant and put in their yards. But we've got that all cleaned up. And now I know a lot of times when Lily and I do a class and the topic comes up, or here on the virtual plant clinic, if people are looking for Florida friendly plants or native plants, and you guys do have a great selection of native plants that people are more and more interested in now, the Master Gardener Nursery is the place to go looking for them.
Yeah, we've been working hard on that to expand our native plants, and every week we're actively looking at if this is appropriate, if anything comes on the like invasive species list, or especially for this area, we choose not to carry it anymore if we did have it. And we're also looking at native plants. We're looking at people in a couple of different ways. Some people want it for their landscaping beds. Other people have acreage, and they just want to fill in some things. So we have a variety of people, and they're and different needs. So some native plants might not be appropriate in your flower bed, but it might be appropriate for, out in a bigger area. So we're always trying to learn more about natives and just Florida-friendly plants in general to better meet people's needs.
And they do a great job of using little to no chemicals there. That's where you can really trust them, to make sure if you're looking for butterfly gardens or something, their plants have not been treated.
No, we desperately try to just have, the native predators or whatever, take care of that. And if we have an instance, it would be something like a safer soap or something like that. Nothing, we don't use any chemicals or anything like that on the plants whatsoever. I want to say 80% of them are propagated by master gardeners, either in the nursery, or many of us have babies growing in our lanai or things like that, where we're actively propagating at home. So we kind of oversee the plants and make sure that there's no chemicals.
And you spend time with the customers if they have questions. And I've seen you guys walking around with them, making suggestions, answering questions. And if you are looking for a place where you can get in your hand a Florida-friendly plant guide, the nursery is the place to go. Well, look at
my goodness, look at that.
My only prop.
I was just thinking, I forgot to bring one in. See, you bring if you want one of those in your hand, they're free, and they'll be glad to give them to you at the nursery and explain to you all what's going on. Do you still have any native milkweed left?
We do. We have the swamp milkweed. It's called swamp, but it doesn't have to be in an extremely wet environment. But it's a great milkweed for our monarchs and queens. A little bit more tender leaves than the other milkweed we have, which is the butterfly weed.
The tuberosa is what I went.
The tuberosa.
And you have the perennis.
Yes, we're just about out of that. Those are the two natives that we carry. We do not carry the tropical milkweed, which I don't know if you talked about that in the past.
I do all the time.
All the time.
And it's like every week I'm hearing something else negative about tropical milkweed. It's becoming to the point where it's really just not worth even having it. For a while we said just make sure it's cut back November through April, the other way around. Because what would occur is it doesn't naturally senesce, go down like our native milkweeds do. So it confuses the monarchs into thinking, hey, I'm in Mexico, or I'm in the Keys, and I'm going to, start reproducing and doing what I should do there. And then we have our winters and they freeze.
They freeze, or they run out of food too, because that's
plants. Yes.
Right. They're their only thing going, and all the natives are gone. And so it's like having one loaf of bread left for, an army, and everybody wants it.
Number two, that's number two problem. Number three, these monarchs carry naturally, they have forever, this parasite called OE. They, when things are going naturally, no problem. They coexist with this parasite. But they're finding that the tropical milkweed, convincing them to stay around too long. More monarchs are coming. They're not socially distancing. More of the parasite gets dropped onto the plants. And an adult monarch can probably handle it, but the babies cannot. So then they're born deformed. I mean, it's just a whole other issue. Now they're finding out maybe there's some invasive potential from this tropical milkweed. That's number 4. Number 5, all milkweeds have toxins, because of that milky sap, and the monarchs rely on that, so they're not yummy to predators. But again, if you add the invasive potential, they may be ingesting too much of the toxin. So there's just now we're getting 5 points against the poor tropical milkweed, which is the milkweed cursivacca. It's the milkweed you're going to walk into the store, big box store.
Right. Because they're prolific growers, and they even if you cut it back, they grow early. The native milkweed does not come up as quickly, but it does die back. It sets the seeds and dies back completely. And when it dies back, that's when the is it bacteria?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's
the bacteria.
Yeah,
it dies back too, because there's nothing on there to host it.
Yes, thank you.
And so that cleans the air or cleans the ground, and they start out new, fresh sprouts. There's no disease, but if they're hanging around, then it has the chance to stay and multiply. So that's why they're dying back is a good thing, and then they sprout up. But they sprout up slowly. What it's doing.
Yeah. And it all stemmed from everyone, a good place in their heart. They want to save the monarchs, but unfortunately, trying to do it this way with this tropical milkweed, which is fine where the tropical milkweed naturally grows, but it doesn't work out here. And there are actually 21 native milkweeds in Florida, but only 3 so far have been successful to be propagated and sold on a large basis. And when I say that, I mean in the native plant world. You're still not going to find it in your big box store.
Right. They are harder
than others. Yeah.
They are harder to propagate. A lot of the natives, they like to be seeds in the ground the natural way. And so that's why it is harder to propagate the natives. And
I know researchers at University of Florida have been working on finding ways to make it easier to propagate those so that they can be commercially propagated, sold at our nursery, and then spread, to more people.
Right. So that's why your big corporations don't have it available, because they wouldn't be able to get it in the amounts that they need. So you gotta, it has to be, it's an effort to find the native plant.
You need to find a native garden or native nursery, or like our nursery.
Right.
We do carry it, and we do have.
You guys are making that effort to make it available, so we appreciate that. But
the nursery itself, we're an extension of the extension office, and we feel we're a resource for the gardening public for things like this, or to answer their questions. And as you were mentioning, we talk as much as people want us to talk to them about plants, but we get a lot of people who are new to the area. They're new to Florida. They're from Minneapolis, or and they're trying to garden, or they're trying to take out turf and put alternates into that, or they just have an area that's a problem area. So we can talk about plants, right plant, right place, but also we stress getting to know your land before you do anything, that type of thing. Know your ground, the sun requirements, the soil requirements. A good thing about using native plants is that they're not like a lot of the ornamentals, the hothouse type plants, where you don't need a lot of soil augmentation. A lot of them like sandy soil, but not all of them. So you have to kind of know your plants. So know your area, and then know the plant that you want to put.
Yeah, you have to do a little bit of research and a little bit of planning. And I know the master gardeners that work at the nursery can help with that. We do have a question on here, though, on native plants from Bernadette. And she wants to know what native plants can be used for cut and drop.
I'm not
So
sure what that
Lily,
means. That
what do
means
you think cut
spreading.
and drop means?
What was that, Bill?
What do you think cut and drop means?
I was hoping one of you two would know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that means like deadheading and then dropping the seeds around.
That could be.
Probably, and a lot of native plants work well for that. At our office, we have several master gardeners led by Master Gardener Alice Smith, who redid the planting beds in front of the office in all native plants. So if you want to see some really different native plants and get some ideas of what flowers and what looks pretty and how big they get, just stop by our office. But they do have a couple out there, and I can think off the top of my head, Gaillardia and Dune Sunflower,
Yeah.
both low growing, prolific flowering plants that will grow and spread, and you really don't have to do anything to maintain them. You can trim them back some and just drop the clippings, because every flower after it flowers is going to set seeds. And then, the dried up flower head, the seeds are either going to be eaten by birds, because it is a good food source for wildlife and birds, or the seeds are going to drop on the ground and you get more plants for free, whether you wanted them or not. You're going to get a lot more for free over time. So those would be good ones to, if you do have to just trim them back some, just chop them, let the clippings lay. They're going to break down, the seeds are going to sprout, and your patch is going to get thicker. And I don't know of any insect or disease problems that they get. That's a nice thing about Florida native plants, is they're very well adapted for this area and end up with very few problems. You very, very rarely have to spray a native plant for any kind of problem.
Oh no, I never have.
Yeah, the mealybugs are the ones, one of the few that we have encountered. But I want to say that native plants are prolific reseeders. I mean, you really don't even have to do that, because that's how they survived all this time. Most of the wild flowers will die back in the winter, and they just prolific reseeders. And so you have one and you can have 50 little seedlings coming up. There's not much you actually have to do to them, except maybe manage the little ones that are coming up at the time. But that's their natural, that's what they do, and that's what they do very well, is set the seeds, because they've learned to adapt to this climate. I mean, they're native, and so they have to be prolific.
And what I recently learned, because we're all learning all the time, I'm trying to have this wildflower bed, and I realized that I had too much mulch on it. Mulch is one of Florida Friendly's principles, but I'd use the big chunky pine mulch, which is my favorite to use. But in a wildflower bed, I found out it's not really a good idea because of that seeding that we're talking about. And I'm not saying don't use any mulch, try to find maybe a finer, but they have adapted over all these years in sandy soil. So if you have a wildflower bed, don't necessarily be afraid of the sandy soil, so that it can reseed and, make contact with the ground to be able to reseed. And I'm also trying to grow in there, and I know Cyndee's going to cringe. It is a native, the sunshine mimosa. They had it get a little, I told you.
I was going to say there's pros and cons.
They had to get a little aggressive there. I know she was waging a battle with it. But if you do want it to grow, I realized, it needs to hook on to the ground. And, this mulch was in its way. So, as I always say about the term master gardener, never let that intimidate anyone else, who's not a master gardener, because all that it really means is a master is somebody who has failed more times than the novice has even tried.
Exactly.
Well, we say we don't know, master gardeners, we don't know all the answers. We know who to ask or where to find answers. But a lot of times we just say, I don't know, we'll find out, or we can look here, or we can look here, and we can look here. just maybe knowing, I know a little bit more than I did 6 years ago, but there's a whole lot I'm still learning every day about different plants.
Absolutely.
It's a process.
You learn by doing. You learn by people asking questions and you having to find the answers for them. You learn, it's a continual process.
And we also have a series of demonstration gardens that we're working on at the nursery, because that's the thing. How does it grow? What does it look, what does it do when it's out of a pot? Because especially the natives, they really don't like to be in the pots at all. And so we have an area that's butterfly garden area. We have a shade demonstration area, bromeliad area. We have one with kind of like maybe some foundation plants around it, and then how you can that's where our sunshine mimosa is, where we thought would be a nice little ground cover, but it wants to cover everything. So, but you learn that way.
It's pioneering.
It's pioneering, yes. So
okay,
we can show people how they look in the ground at different times of the year, too.
I think Bernadette was asking about green fertilizer for trees. So that would be more of like, they call it a green manure crop, something that you grow. And then when you trim it back, it's going to help to build up the soil. It's going to block the weeds. It also works as a ground cover. So sunshine mimosa might be a good choice for that. I know it doesn't have to be cut. You can run a mower over it if you want. And perennial peanut, even though it's not a native, it is Florida friendly. You have to be careful which variety of perennial peanut you use. Makes for a really good ground cover. And it's a legume also, which means it's in the bean family. So when you do trim it back and just let the clippings lay, they're very high in nitrogen. So that's going to help to benefit the trees also.
Yeah, we have a nice display of the perennial peanut.
I was going to say that your perennial peanut area, I was there, about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I did take note, you got it trimmed very nicely, containing it in that one area. Now, the perennial peanut is not a native.
Correct.
Very nice ground cover, and you had it looking really nice, I thought.
Yeah, it's one of our more successful ones. But we can talk, pros and cons about it with people. We do talk about what they want it for. If it's in a flower bed area, that they don't want it to grow up and up over the flowers and the windows or into their neighbors, then you have to look at one kind. If you want it out in your field, or you have a big lawn area, it can be great, and some of them can be mowed. But the natives, they're designed to survive. So like the sunshine mimosa, it sets roots down deep and it spreads. So you're going to want it where you have it,
yeah, we know someone who has it as a lawn.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It can be beautiful. You can mow it. You can have it has these little pretty purple powder puff things, but you want to know. You just need to know the plant, and know I can use it here, and this will be fine. You don't want to. I was thinking, there's the carpenters, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Well, you research it 2 times or 3 times and plant once, because you don't have to want to start digging up things and saying this isn't working. And
what was that line I gave you, Bill? Failure to plan is planting to fail.
Right.
That sounds like the title for a class.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple other questions here. Lee is wondering, he has milkweed with yellow flowers. I was told it is native. Is that true?
There is the tuberosa that is a native.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty orange.
Yellow.
They're very bright orange.
But they can be yellow.
Oh,
I found that out like you said, we're always learning. I found that out a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if it was Diana Easton. She might be on here that brought it in, or one of our other master gardeners said they bought. I think it was called Holly Jolly milkweed, and it was.
I'd never heard of that
Yeah,
one.
I thought, oh, that must be a cultivar. It must be.
Yeah, sounds like it.
We looked it up. It's a tuberosa, native, yellow.
Okay.
So,
the tropical
Yeah,
has
you can send pictures to Lily and she'll figure out what it is.
And
yeah.
I will, like Cyndee, find those smart people who can help
Yeah.
me.
Well, yeah, they remembered the name, and we looked it up and researched it, thank goodness for our cell phones and Google, and we could, get the answer there. And we said, yes, they say it's a native tuberosa, and it's yellow. So, and I'm looking for that.
The tropical milkweed is going to be multicolored, like yellow and orange, and a little red, in the same little bundles.
In the same bundle. And the butterfly weed, the other one is a solid orange.
Right.
And this one, I think, would be a solid yellow.
At least 3 feet tall. The other ones don't seem to grow that tall either.
And Sharon wants to know, are seeds available for native milkweed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but they can be very difficult to germinate and grow.
Yes. There's 2 ways you can do it. I don't know if we can name sites, but you can go on. Can we name sites?
You can name FloridaWildflowers.org.
This is called Joyful Butterfly, and you look that up, and you could look for native plants for your Florida or the southwest or east southeast, and they do sell seeds, and they do sell starters. They're not inexpensive, but they are very hard to propagate. We've also collected seeds from your plants, let them dry out. Those are, again, very hard to propagate. They like to be in the ground. They like to have to winter over.
Which explains why they're not readily available.
Right. So the answer is yes.
Yes, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about such things, and we talked about this Monday, I don't know how successful Bill is on editing the video we tried to do on Monday with the...
I'm working on it.
With the front, the native garden area that Alice Smith created. But one of the things we talked about is when we say native, we mean native to our area, native to West Central Florida. Because you could order, Diana is here.
Yeah, she said.
Hello, yellow.
Okay, hello.
And it was a customer. Yes, she's, my memory is jogged now. A customer came in and said, we have it.
You got to be careful. Because you could order, we have black eye Susans. Michigan has black eye Susans. You may think, okay, black eye Susans are black eye Susans. Actually, no.
Nope.
Each, area has its own ecotype of black eye Susan or milkweed, so when you're looking native, make sure you mean native to West Central Florida.
Right. Usually, lots of times they have a little map, and they can actually show you where it's growing, and you want to pinpoint it.
Right, and you may
Texas
have
is not.
in Michigan, Texas, Pennsylvania, Indiana, who's like,
Right.
I'll send you some of my seeds, and
Yes.
that's not really accomplishing, what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, here's a nice comment from Nancy on the nursery. She said, Cyndee was so helpful when I was struggling with my firecracker plant. I've learned so much from the friendly people there. So we'd love to hear those kind of comments.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, mine is doing much better now, too. We were both struggling at the same time with our firecracker plants. So
Interesting.
They get knocked back during the winter, and because they get so branchy, technically what you should do in the spring is go through very carefully and clean out just the dead brown stuff, but it's a lot of work.
yeah.
There's a lot of branches there, and it's a lot of little snipping. So
Thank you.
if you're patient, you can do it.
Well, what we found out, I'm sorry.
I was saying I've just planted some in October, and one did fine, the other suffered some cold damage, so now I know. Go home and clean that out. So yeah, I learned.
Well, we found that we were trying to get them started, and you water them daily for the first 30 days or so, and then you wean it off. And we just found that the firecracker seems to be one that needs a little bit more water for a longer period of time.
Okay.
And the reason I found that out is the rainy season came, and it was getting much more water than I was giving it, even though I thought it was appropriate length of time. And they did much better. So there's some plants that just need a little bit more water in their initial growing period, even though they say they're drought tolerant. They really need to set those roots, and sometimes it just takes them a little bit longer. So they think that's what we figured out.
Interesting. Okay.
Is needed.
No. So Nancy also asked, she got a coral honeysuckle from there, but it seems to be a little bit stunted, not flowering too much. Any tips? And she's in her handout.
On that one, I'm not positive. We can look it up. It is the native.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they take a little while to get going.
They do.
Sometimes I have a couple of plants I'm thinking of that it took like a season for it to really take off. So I don't know if that's what's the case with the coral honeysuckle, but some take longer than others. I don't know. Again, I don't know where it's planted, the sun or the conditions.
Yeah, coral honeysuckles can grow like weeds once they get established.
And when it does take off, it really will. I'm trying to plant some passion vine, and I know once it gets really started, it's going to be one of the pioneering plants. And I have one that is growing up the fence, and the other one I want, it was small, but I want to grow up the fence. And something which I suspect my little baby gopher tortoise, because I watched him walk right over it, keeps eating the top off of it before it starts to grow to go up the fence. But, that's what I have these native plants for. So I have to,
well, that's the host plant too. So even in our demonstration garden, mine at home, they got started, the Gulf fritillaries came, the caterpillars, and then they were down to just a stem.
Yeah.
And then I came back and looked at it about 10 days later, and it's really, really full. Like it's like where those leaves come from. So if you buy host plants,
they're going to be eaten.
They're going to be eaten. You need to expect to see little bugs on them, the caterpillar and larvae, and they're going to be eaten. Now, some plants like the cassias, which grow in bigger shrubs and can be many trees, that we carry some a native cassia and a Bahama cassia that's Florida friendly. They get bigger, and you hardly even notice the caterpillars are on there, but they are. But things like the milkweed and the passion vine, they can get
eaten up,
chumped down to stubs, but that's the natural cycle. They fast generators too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this wasn't caterpillar. I mean, I've watched.
You've actually seen it, yeah.
Eat its head right off, and that is one of the plants they do eat, the tortoise.
And rabbits and deer and things like that. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I might have to take that one because it is just a stem and put it in a pot in the porch until it gets decent enough size to be eaten.
Right, and that.
You put your dogs out there to protect it.
I put them on the other side of the fence so the dogs wouldn't trample. And besides, the dogs aren't any bigger than the tortoise. So.
And passion vine, the maypop, the ones with the big, beautiful flowers, they're called maypop for a reason, because they love to spread. So if you plant it in the ground, in the garden area or wherever, expect it to go elsewhere. And if it goes into your lawn, you mow it down, it's fine. But you can find them popping up in other places, which if they pop up in a good place, can be great because more food. But sometimes they will pop up in different places. So you can grow them in a pot. I switched mine to a pot, big pot, because where I had mine was really close to my neighbor.
Okay.
And so I said, I don't think they want to. So that's another thing you need to know about your plants is just how they spread and how you can control them and things like that.
Yeah, what kind of things you need to control. I know mints get very aggressive, and other plants are just going to be a little bit safer if you want them more contained, putting them in a pot or a container.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Nancy says that on her coral honeysuckle, she has a hummingbird on it.
That's fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to look up. She said it was on partial.
Partial sun. Yeah.
Yeah, part sunny area. And some plants are going to do well in a very sunny area or partial sun. The more shade they get, the slower they're going to grow sometimes. So maybe it's just a little bit slower getting completely established and starting to take off.
Yeah.
If it's otherwise healthy and not dying back or having root problems or other issues, then maybe you should just be patient and hopefully it'll start to take off soon. With the kind of weather and rain we've been getting, yeah, everything, if it hasn't taken off yet, it will.
Yeah, that's the only, that's the thing to look at. It might just need a little bit more sun to get a little bit.
And also, just a kind of out there kind of thought, these native plants are not going to want much to do with any kind of fertilizer you might put on your lawn. So that maybe I have no idea, but that's something to look at as well. You put these high nitrogen fertilizers on your lawn, and our native plants and palms especially,
Mm-hmm.
don't respond well to it.
Yeah,
Right.
native plants, as a general rule, need anywhere between very, very little fertilizer and no fertilizer.
Yeah.
Because they're well adapted to grow in the very sandy soils. Some of them can benefit from a lot of extra compost, but a lot of them don't like that. A lot of them like just the sand.
Beach sunflower, beach sunflower, I had it growing in my front bed. It still is a little, but it used to take over the entire front bed. But what happened over time, and I keep mulching it, to make it look nice, I made that soil too rich for that beach sunflower, so it decided I don't really want to grow as much here anymore. There's this little spot, like cutout square at my garage door of the cruddiest, trying to think of a nice word, patch of dirt and sand, surrounded by cement that you'd ever want to see. That's where that beach sunflower is the happiest. And I've tried to put it in a pot. You've mentioned putting it in a pot. It died within the first year of the pot and started growing just outside of the pot.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
There's some that just don't grow well. The natives grow well in pots. And a lot of those, they want to spread. They just don't, their pots don't work well with them.
So I still have some of that dune or beach sunflower in my front beds, but I've been replacing it with sages and, native and non, different, and milkweed and all of that. And there's still some bunch grass there, big tall bunch grass that my daughter claims look like troll heads. But
yeah. If people are redoing their beds and if they want the reseeding and things like that, instead of putting down heavy mulch, they could put down, pull away and put down like a thin layer of newspaper that will
disintegrate. Yeah.
Disintegrate, and then put a real thin layer of mulch. I use leaves now mostly because I have oak trees that don't stop.
Right.
So I just put it in, and that way that'll keep when you till up your soil, all those seeds want to germinate from the weeds. That'll keep all those kind of down. But as it disintegrates over that time, it should be enough now
and
for them to.
You have a compost bin.
Mm-hmm.
Your finished compost would be great as a mulch for those areas too.
Right, and you just
sunflower wouldn't like that though, but somebody else.
Yeah, so that way you can keep some weeds down, but you don't have that thick layer of mulch. And again, it will decompose and the seeds should be able to germinate.
Mhm.
And as long as you don't have the kind of problems that Lee apparently
Not
has, he
yet,
says,
not yet. They haven't made their way up here yet.
an iguana ate his passion vine down to the base of the vine. So
Okay, I will
that
not
is something that we
complain.
don't deal with here in Hernando County
Yeah.
yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I will not complain about the tortoise again. It's not an iguana eating my passion vine. They're in Hillsborough, aren't they? Southern Hillsborough.
Probably. Oh my gosh, they are all over Miami.
Oh,
If you live
geez.
on a canal or a grassy area, they are just all over the place. And they're little ones and big ones, and they lay around, and they're all over the place.
I don't know how you guys handle walking out the front door and seeing 4-foot lizards out there.
I have enough trouble with the little ones that we have, these little critters.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure how large. I've never seen really large iguanas. I mean, they do get, I don't know, 2 feet long, 3 feet.
wow.
But we have other invasive lizards like tegus can get 4 feet long, and they can become pretty large lizards. And they are in Hillsborough County, and they found that because they hibernate in the winter and go dormant, they could spread and live all the way up to Kentucky and Tennessee.
Ooh.
So they are probably on their way here, Lily, and you may have a 4-foot tegu lizard in your backyard.
You're going to eat my little dogs.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Our dogs would be absolutely delighted to see something like that in the backyard. They're like, oh, wow, what's that? It's a huge lizard. Come on, let's get it. And
So,
Diana said they're in Fort Myers. They're traveling. So iguanas and tegus and plenty of others.
Pythons.
one thing I wanted to say about the nursery, you did have where it was the address on there. On Oliver Street, 19490 Oliver Street, behind the fairgrounds, like you're going to the animal control. We're open we're open Wednesdays and Saturdays. 8:30 to 11 are summer hours because we start to melt past 11. When it gets cooler, we're to 12. But yeah, 8:30 to 11 Monday. Well, Monday's a work day for us sometimes, I'm sorry. Wednesday and Saturday. And we take cash and checks. We cannot take credit cards. So, and we'll talk. You don't even have to bring money. We'll talk plants and answer questions and help you with, anything with that. We just have the plants to help you with your choice. If you find something or need something, then we can maybe have a few things for you to use. But we will also direct you to other places that might have either what we don't have, because we try to keep some things in stock, but again, we have stock coming in and going out depending on what has been propagated by other master gardeners. But we'll try to get you, if we can't have it, don't have it, or something that we might not carry that we think would be appropriate, to get you to other places. Even some of the big, sometimes we can say, well, you can get that at a big box store. It would have it. Just check the label to make sure you're getting, excuse me, what you think you're getting and things like that. So,
yeah, because I know that you guys generally don't carry many trees.
Right.
You do carry some larger flowering shrubs, cassias and things like that. You don't currently have any kind of fruit trees, do you?
No, and we don't plan on carrying anything like that.
So fruit trees are kind of a whole separate category or separate
edibles
enterprise.
Right, and we don't carry vegetables or herbs really, because again, those are readily available other places, and we're trying to carve out a niche there where
Yeah.
we have, like we said, natives, Florida friendly, help people with landscaping and things like that, taking out turf if they don't, that, or expanding their areas to make it more Florida friendly, a little bit less water, maybe a little bit less maintenance once you get it, if you get the right plant in the right place again. And we talk about that and talk about your areas and things like that. But we're only there on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
So you have to be, when you're a working person like me, you got to get there Saturday morning. And,
right.
And it's
right.
beautiful there. You get there early, right at 8:30. When they're there, it's still
relatively
cool. And they have the carts, so you can, fill it up and your plants and take it to your car. And what I did, kind of what you just mentioned, I got the beautiful milkweed from you. I got some black-eyed Susans. I got some more sages. But I also had in mind that I want to start planting a screening near my pool. So I went from your place to the closest big box store with a nursery and got some photocarpus. So, you can easily make a trip, on a Saturday morning for your yard. So.
Okay, looks like Lee is in Broward County, so they do have huge iguanas in Broward. And Lily, here, I have a good question for you. Somebody has a relatively small, possibly a 7-gallon Royal Poinciana tree that they like to plant. Do you think it'd be best that I repot it till it gets bigger, or should I go ahead and put it in the ground with the appropriate dirt and fertilization?
I'm not that familiar with South Florida plants, if that's what you were trying to find out from me. I don't know where this particular Facebook user is posting from. You can push, if she's posting from this area, you can push zones if you want, because maybe you'll be successful, climate change, microclimates, all of that. But generally, the Royal Poinciana is a 10A or 10B zone.
Yes, South Florida.
South Florida. Cyndee may have some knowledge about.
Well, a couple things. I know here in Central Florida, we have like our Arbor Day in January, and that's where we say that's around the time to start planting trees in this area, Central Florida. I'm not sure again where they are, but I believe they could go on the UF IFAS. There should be information on that and planting, wouldn't there, Bill?
Yeah, you may want to, because none of us are really experts on South Florida flowering trees, look online, just Google University of Florida Royal Poinciana tree, and I guarantee you they have a fact sheet on it. But I would think that if you live in South Florida, and if it's a 7-gallon tree, if it's, waist high, shoulder high, whatever it might be, if you put it in the ground right now, it will probably take off and grow like a weed this summer, because Royal Poinciana trees, for anybody who doesn't know what they are, become very, very large. They're beautiful flowering trees. They live in South Florida. If you live in Central Florida, you are pushing it, and it will get damaged during the winter when we get a really bad freeze. How badly it gets damaged depends on exactly where you plant it, how old it is, how cold it gets on that cold night. But you could put it in the ground right now, and it should take off over the summer. The nice thing is you're not going to have to water it a whole lot, because you're going to get a lot of rainfall. If it doesn't rain, you have to water it until it gets well rooted and settled in. But for a lot of those South Florida trees, fruit trees, things like that, palm trees, summer is a good time to put them in, just because of all the extra water that we're getting in the form of rainfall.
I think people are getting away with the Royal Poinciana in Tampa, definitely Sarasota and further south.
I think Pinellas, Southern Pinellas, you can put it.
Here it is, don't spend a lot of money on it. It's going to be.
Here Don't be afraid to experiment, but we can't guarantee it.
Right.
And here's an easy question. Lorraine is asking about adding clover to her scrubby lawn.
Well, now
You
we're
can
going
grow
further.
clover. It only grows well during the winter, so it's a cool season plant. It's used a lot of times for cover crops in vegetable gardens. So if you have a vegetable garden and you want to add some organic matter, you can oversee with clover in the winter. Generally, winter is when you're going to be growing most of your vegetables, so not many people put in wintertime cover crops here. But if you wanted to add some to your lawn, you could overseed in the fall. It'll grow during the winter, but most clovers are going to die during the summer here.
Mm-hmm.
Gets too hot.
So you might want to look more into that perennial peanut or even
Or
the sunshine.
a different ground cover.
A different ground cover that's
low
fine
growing.
to, that's for this area. We do have oxalis, which is a quote, quote, weed that looks like clover.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's available, like, other than where nature, puts it.
I know you can get seed for white clover and crimson clover because both are used as cover crops in vegetable gardens in the winter. But they generally burn up once we, get up to this time of year. So Cyndee, maybe this is one that you know a little bit about. Kim wants to know any tips on transplanting ornamental ginger. I have several in ground I would like to separate.
I'm not, the gingers aren't my big area, but I know at the nursery, we do have gingers growing out. And we usually wait until after, like till the fall, where they start to die back. And then, but not completely, so we know where they are because they will die. And then you can, dig down and divide them up and then separate them. But we don't do it now when they're actively growing. And I wouldn't, I would do it in the fall, move them, give them time to winter over and set, and then they'll be ready to start out again in the spring. That's what we do when we're trying to divide and propagate them at the nursery.
Yep, that works fine. If you do it in the fall, they're already dying back, and you can get them separated and then planted or put wherever you want them. And the next spring, they're all good to come up individually and go. Gingers, and oh my gosh, I looked up once before how many varieties of ginger there are. There's literally thousands of varieties of ginger. And many of them grow very, very well here in Central Florida in a pretty shady spot. So pretty easy plant to grow. Mm-hmm. So looks like we're getting kind of close to that time. If anybody has any other questions, if you want to go ahead and toss them in, and let's start through the banners here and the contact information. If you guys ever have any other lawn and garden questions, if you need to contact our office, here is our phone number. It's 352-754-4433. And if you call the office, you will most likely get a hold of Teresa. And if she can't answer your question, she'll pass it on to me. If I can't answer it, I pass it on to Lily. If it's a question about the Master Gardener Nursery, we normally pass it on to them because we don't have an inventory sheet, or we don't always necessarily know what they have in stock, day to day. So we always have to double check with people like Cyndee or people.
And it's constantly evolving too. So
sure, stuff is constantly coming and going. And if you have a question, you have pictures, you can go ahead and email them directly to me. There's my email.
And some of the conversations Bill and I have with each other, I took pictures of the native plants in front of their office. And actually one, I didn't quite catch what it was. I knew what all the others were. I didn't quite catch it. So I asked Bill and he told me pretty yellow flower. So this
It was a pretty yellow flower.
That sometimes professionals have with each other. And we had to go back to the Master Gardener volunteer to get the answer.
Exactly. Send it to the expert to get the correct answer.
Yeah, like we said, we might not know the answer, but we know who to ask or where to look for it.
Exactly. And if you have any questions for Lily, there is her email. And one more time, if anybody would like to visit the Master Gardener Nursery, there is the address. It's 19490 Oliver Street in Brooksville. It is right behind the Hernando County Fairgrounds, which is right along State Road 41. Very easy to find. They are there Saturday morning and Wednesday mornings from 8:30 in the morning till 11. During the winter, they're open a little bit later, but it's getting kind of hot, and after 11 in the morning, nobody wants to be out
melted.
there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Time to call it a day after that. So let's see if we have any last moment burning questions here.
Well, we'd love to see anybody and everybody and talk plants.
So Dan says his neighbors have the Royal Poincianas in South Kissimmee, which is far enough south. That's kind of the edge. You can push it a little bit there. They're not as large as the South Florida ones. I know in Miami, oh my gosh, they get to be huge trees, and when they flower, they're real attention getters. He had some from seed that he picked up in the East Coast in Hawaii about 20 years ago that did well until a bad frost, but the parent plant was on the cool side of the island next to the tundra zone. So that's definite experimentation, and that's great. And there are things that might, if you kind of push the edges, do well for a number of years, but every 20 years or so we get the devastating freezes. Lily can tell you all about them over the years here in Hernando County, getting down to the teens or below. So it happens eventually.
Yeah, we've gotten down to 15. It's not that unheard of. We haven't had a real winter in a good 15 years. So, if you've only been here in that length of time, you haven't experienced, we would experience St. Augustine lawn killing winters, and we haven't had that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before, where St. Augustine lawns actually get killed from the cold temperatures.
Yeah, and we used to have that, and we haven't had it in a while. And we can circle back around to our native plant discussion. We're not here to debate what causes, what not causes, whatever, but we're in some kind of changing climate cycle. And these native plants have been around for millennia, and they've experienced this before. So if you're looking for plants that might withstand, they've withstood hurricanes, they've withstood all kinds of everything our humans can throw at us. So that might be one of the more successful ways to go. Everything else, experimenting with the zone pushing, as we call it, just know that's fun and that's experimenting. But if you want plants you can really rely on, native is probably the way to go.
And that's why we say just get to know the plant. And if you make the choice, I'm going to try this, I'm going to go with this, and it'll see what happens, what the winter's like and things like that. But if you buy something and you are assuming this is going to last and it dies out, then, just know. And that's why we try to talk plants. And even if you're buying at big box stores or whatever, research it. So when you spend your money, at least you know the pros and the cons. And okay, I'm experimenting here a little bit, or this looks like a pretty solid plant that I can think will survive. But there's always the big freeze that all holds.
Exactly. You have to understand your area and what kind of plants you're going to do well. And let me squeeze in one real quick screen share here. These are some pictures that our regular viewer Austin up in Green Bay sent me this morning about what things look like up there. And here we go. And Austin is a regular viewer from the farthest possible away from Hernando County. He's up in Green Bay, and it looks like it was rainy there today. But these were some pretty, if my computer will go here. Here, I'm not sure if you can see the pictures at the bottom here. It's a little slow to
They're
load.
little, yeah.
Yeah, it was some pretty scary pictures up there.
That just
It
looks
looks
like
like an
Florida.
afternoon here in Central
I was
Florida.
gonna say, that's just a Tuesday here.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, well,
but
doesn't
you
look
need
like
to
they're
know
gonna
your
run
area wherever you
I
are.
did mention
where there's
that it could it's summer and it's rainy season here in Florida and in Green Bay also.
Yes,
So
and I've heard a story of a big thunderstorm in the Pittsburgh area because I have family there. But some of my siblings are obsessively watching an eagle's nest up there in our old neighborhood, and they were worried about the eaglets because they had gone out, and oh, did they get caught in the storm? But apparently they did come back. But I told them if they were Florida eagles, they would have smelled the rain and known to stay in their nest and not go
oh
out.
yeah, that's just regular afternoon here.
Yes.
Okay, well guys, thank you very much. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll be back here again next Thursday. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Lily, for being here like always. And Cyndee, thank you so much. That was great information.
It was very interesting.
We will have to have you back here again.
Oh, well, thank you.
So
We
go
will
out
make you a regular
Saturday
guest.
morning and see Cyndee and all the others who out there. Brenda's
Right. We have a great,
She's
hardworking
usually there.
crew. I need to say that. And they're all volunteers. And we all enjoy what we're doing, but we could not do it without our core of really hardworking volunteers.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you, Cyndee.